Mark, you actually have a YouTube channel, and that's kind of how I came across you. And also your interview on Coast to Coast. And you're one of the few people who brings this. I'm going to say theory because I think it's all theories.
Sure.
Regardless of what side of the fence you're on.
You can say theory. I don't have absolute proof.
I can't. I have neither. I have no proof of either. To be honest with you, I think we'll get to that. But
sure.
You bring to the table expertise and insight on a flat Earth, and it's a very controversial subject. You know this.
Very. Yeah.
And I'm sure that you love the fact that you're attached to the flat Earth theory. You love people pointing at you like you're a vegan and go, well, do you eat Snicker bars? You know, it's kind of that type of, I see it out there. It's a very hostile thing.
It can be. Absolutely, it can be. It's the most polarizing thing I've ever seen.
People get really triggered when you bring up flat Earth.
Yep.
And for me, I'm the type of person to question, well, why are you so triggered? And all of a sudden I start thinking, well, all right, you know what? Now that you're triggered, there's so many people so angry that this theory exists. How about I read it with an open mind? And I think more and more people are going with that particular stance.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have a number of questions that I haven't seen answered in too many places or in a way that I understand. But I also, just to get a little bit of your background, you, from what I understand, used to do, are you a champion of video games? Did I read this right?
Yeah. I started out my professional career, other than the sous chef at a restaurant bit.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
I played video games for a living. I won a Little World tournament back in the mid-90s. It was a computer pinball tournament, and the publisher who was out was not in Southern California. They were out in Boulder, Colorado. They called me and they said, hey, how would you like to review one of our games? And I gave it just a scathing review. I said, but there's just so many things mechanically wrong with this game. I can't even tell you. And the developer liked my review so much, he kind of hinted at the publisher to take a look at me. Even though that's not what I was going for. You know, I was literally a sous chef in a restaurant. So I flew out to Colorado and I interviewed with them, and we hit it off really well, and I became their ringer. Nobody in the company really played games. They tested games, but nobody played it. So that's what I did for the next few years. I traveled around at like Macworld Boston and San Fran and E3 and made the games, you know, highlighted the games for people, and, you know, and looked at other developers and recruited developers. I ended up becoming a producer, video game producer. Yeah. And brought in talent to the company, and we held on for a little while. And then there was an arbitration thing, and they're gone now. But then I moved over to teaching proprietary software. It seemed like an easy thing for startup companies in Boulder, Colorado, time and attendance companies, of all things. There's not that many in the country, and two of them happen to be in Boulder, Colorado. So lucked out there and did that for the next 15 years. Where it was that's what I was doing for the bulk of my time in Boulder, was traveling around the country teaching, boiling down software concepts to people that, you know, blue collar factories all over the place. If you can think of an out of the way town in the country, I've probably been there. And that's what I did for the longest time until I finally got into conspiracies.
Well, I mean, it's a very exciting time to have gotten into video games. And software and the whole development of it all. I'm 45, so I kind of grew up, you know, throughout the 80s with a lot of video games, and I'm a software developer, and as well as I do a lot of coding, but I'm a stay-at-home dad, so I really don't have as much time anymore. But I'm a C programmer, and
oh, nice. Yeah, you're old enough to remember then. Yeah, the golden days where games came out, and People had LAN parties.
Oh yeah, totally.
I knew the guys. For example, here's a fun little story, a little name dropping. I met so many cool guys, but I remember hanging out with the guys from Bungie.
Oh, I remember Bungie.
Yeah, back in the day
Yeah.
when they didn't have, when they only had Marathon for the Macintosh, and I had heard the story. It's like, oh yeah, what are these projects they're working on? It's we're working on this project, we're never going to finish it. And it was kind of it was the same sort of line, but it was for a console. And then Microsoft approached them and said, hey, what are you working on? And it turned out to be Halo. And with the Microsoft backing, they finally finished it, but they all had to move out from Chicago to Washington up to Seattle.
It's funny you bring up LAN parties. Like, holy cow, you're walking there with your 19-inch Sony Trinitron monitor.
Yeah.
It weighs like 40 pounds.
Haul that thing in. Oh my lord.
Where'd you get a screen so big?
Oh yeah, playing Warcraft 2 until the sun came up.
Holy cow.
Or Quake test, or one of the Dooms, or I had so much fun, and plus I had some great gamer friends. I had one of the finest video game players in the world was my best friend.
Really?
A guy named Eric, who, oh my god, I've never seen a guy with that sort of hand-eye coordination, and he won. He goes down to E3 just to hang out. I remember, not even with our booth. He just flew down. And he won a Duke Nukem tournament down there.
Oh man, I remember Duke Nukem.
The classic. And one of the prizes for winning it, other than this giant a Roswell alien pod thing, which was worth quite a bit of money, was to play the creator, George something, of Duke Nukem, and play this guy, right? Play the creator of the game, head to head, and he just destroyed him. Eric just lit him up. He was that good. He got to the point where the guy was killing himself.
Oh
more
my
than
God.
killing Eric, because Eric had this great gift of, a couple pixel wide thing, and he could find a way to walk on it, and it was amazing. So anyway, a lot of fun. I really enjoyed those years.
Yeah, Duke Nukem was the big step away, because all of a sudden the sprites look like little videos, like of the fire, and
It's
like, whoa, that just exploded and looked almost like a real explosion.
Yeah, and then I remember when in 2003 when the World of Warcraft alpha came out, and I remember running through some of the dwarf lands at the beginning, and I'm going. I told my friend, I go, this is going to be the end of me, I guess, as far as games goes, because it's so immersive, and this is where games are going to go. The giant MMOs. And wow,
you just made me think of something. I have a 10-year-old son, and he's obsessed with Minecraft, like every other kid.
Freaking Minecraft!
But you know what? He also created his own Minecraft on a Raspberry Pi. So I'm not going to totally put down it, because I'm teaching him Python, and he's picking up coding really well, but he plays it on the PC also, and the legitimate versions.
Right.
But he actually coded his own, which was pretty cool.
That's cool.
Not on his own. He followed an instructional. It's not like my kid redeveloped Minecraft from scratch. But
Minecraft bugged me. I don't condemn the developer. All developers are great, but it's like I'm looking at this thing and I'm going, wait, did we just take this massive step backwards? What's with the I was really surprised that Lego didn't buy him out almost immediately.
Yeah, I
because
can't
it's like
believe it.
This thing is like built for the whole Lego. Lego markets everywhere. Why they wouldn't call him and throw him a couple $1 million to end it right then and there?
I think once Microsoft had it, it's untouchable.
Yeah, I was just really surprised that it's really just an editor, and I was really surprised that an editor took off of that well. But then again, it shouldn't surprise me, because SimCity, if anyone remembers the origin of that. The origin of SimCity was not The Sims, but the original was that it started out as a disaster recovery program, right? Where the things would. That. Oh yeah, where it was that was how the game was supposed to be, but they had to build the city originally, and the developers realized they had so much fun building the city that eventually they said, you know what, who cares if there's disasters? People are going to spend hours and hours and hours just building the city. It's like, yeah, fine, you want a tornado to run through it later, I suppose, but most people didn't even do that. They was like, how big, how efficient can we? It was a big nerd draw, and like all things.
Now, one of the things, I just wanted to say, and I have to ask my son, I don't know if you know this, but you can fly in Minecraft in the creative aspect of it. And I'm wondering, when you go up, is the Earth flat?
Oh yeah. Oh, well,
I'm just not sure, because you can keep going up. There is a spot where it stops.
Usually, okay, I can only give you I'll give you the Warcraft version. All development, 99% of game development is a flat world with some sort of ceiling that can be tapered, I suppose. Usually it's squared off. Usually it's just this giant square box, because, computers like squares way more than they like circles, and, all that right angle stuff.
Sure.
And the reason it's not and so Warcraft, the whole world is perfectly flat, absolutely tabletop, pixel flat. And the reason is because why make it harder on yourself? Meaning, why would you build a curve into something if the player is never, ever, ever going to notice the difference? You build the world flat. And that's just how it is. Most developers that I know, when they build this stuff, that's what they do, just to save time. It's like, look, if the person playing is not going to know, same sort of thing with the whole, do you draw the other side of the mountain? If the character's not going to be on that other side.
Yeah.
No, you don't draw the other side. Why would you? And then and that leads into the whole then things really start bleeding into the double slit experiment, which is, okay, if nothing exists in a place where humans aren't interacting with it, the tree falling in the forest. We beforehand, we never could answer that question. So it's like, well, if tree falls in a forest, no one's there to hear it, doesn't make a sound. Well, now we know the answer to that. It's like, no, it doesn't make a sound. The tree's not even there. It hasn't been rendered yet. I know it's kind of a little joke.
No. But it's also forward thinking. Because, in the world of software, it can't occur. It won't occur.
Why would you? I mean, it's a waste of resources, and in fact, you see that when you're maybe even in Minecraft, when if you're traveling at speed over an area, and the game isn't optimized perfectly, you'll see the stuff rendering in front of you. We've all seen it.
Yeah.
The trees, all of a sudden the trees are start popping up, and it's like, you don't care. It's like, yeah. The trees are being built, so I get there and I'll have trees. But it doesn't occur to you that when you leave that area, there are no trees. In fact, there's not anything. And then it turns into the whole the Stephen King Langoliers concept, which I thought was very ahead of its time.
So was there a single is there a single thing that happened where the flat Earth theory kind of clicked in your mind?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And did you think of this throughout life, by the way? Like,
the way?
Did you think about it throughout your life? Like, did you question it?
Nope.
Okay.
Initially, what had happened was that I had looked into conspiracies off and on for years. I honestly did not believe. I started late, though. I didn't, until I got to university, I didn't even think that people in positions of power lied.
Oh, wow.
I grew up on a rural island up in north of Seattle, and really didn't think, very, very sheltered. And then when I got to university, it's like, wait, there's other religions. Wait, there's other things going on out there. And then I saw JFK in the theater opening weekend, at which
it's a very eye-opening film.
It's like, okay, so people do lie. We're not talking politicians and used car salesmen and lawyers. I'm talking people with real power.
Nations
lie. And then I got it. I understood the saying. The kind saying is that history is written by the winners, but I think the more appropriate one by Napoleon is that history is just lies that are agreed upon. Which I know. And so I was off and on into conspiracies for a number of years, and just kind of dabbling with them. I knew about just about every one of them. And when the internet started cranking up to full speed, and YouTube,
I mean, that's almost what it was built for.
that and naked people. Between the two, there's a lot of. I mean, the internet's a pretty dark place. I don't care what you see on Facebook.
Well, do you come from a BBS background, like the bulletin boards?
When I was
that before your time?
No, I'm a little older than you, so yeah, I know. I remember that. Oh hell, MUDs. I knew people that played MUDs a lot, and I didn't because I the whole nother story. I was busy doing other things in university. Right. But my friends, I knew about the bulletin board systems and the MUDs, and it's like, I totally got the draw of that. Anyway, so what happened was I got conspiracy bored, for lack of a better term, where I looked at just about every conspiracy. I was like, okay, we've done it. I've seen it. Whatever conspiracy you can think of, I've heard about it. I've got an opinion on it one way or the other. There's nothing left. It's except for this piece of crap over in the corner, which I'm not going to look at, which is flat Earth, because every conspiracy guy knows about this. It's not even technically a conspiracy. It's so big and so ridiculous that it can't be real. So everybody just kind of pushes it off. In fact, I kind of made fun of it in the documentary that came out, which was I said it's like, it's the DVD on the shelf that you got for Christmas that you're never going to watch. It's the book you got that you're never going to read. You just sits there and it's like, I'm not opening it. I can't be that desperate to open this thing. And during the summer of 2014, I did. I said, you know what? I'll just look at it. It's like, it reminds me of I use a lot of movie references. I absorb so much media.
That's fine. I love film.
Oh well, it was okay. Ferris Bueller, where Cameron's in the car. He's going. He's like, I'll go. That's right. Really what my attitude was. It's like, fine, I'll watch it. I don't care. I'll just freaking watch it. It's gonna be stupid, but I'll take a look at this. And it was by this German guy who did a video on the flight paths in the Southern Hemisphere, and it was totally in German. But I got the subtitles and the diagrams. I kind of got what he was saying. He was saying, look, the flight paths don't make any sense. I go, okay, that's kind of interesting.
It's one thing. Yeah.
That's one thing. It's like, yeah. I see what's happening there. And so I looked at another one. It was because there was not a lot out there in 2014. And there was by a Canadian photorealistic painter who said that he went to some sort of high-level NASA party, and it was kind of like turned into like one of those smoking man from X-Files type of things, where they were saying, people were talking amongst each other saying, don't send teams down to Antarctica because the GPS doesn't work down there because it's flat. And I go, okay. I'm digging this. This could be kind of fun. I'm going to debunk it, of course, like everybody says. It's like I can just blow through this thing in a weekend. 9 months later, I'm sitting at my machine, just banging my head on the keyboard, literally going, okay, I can't prove the globe anymore. I can't do it. Not in a court of law. Would not be able to prove it in a court of law. So through a number of things. And so I decided to use my skill set, which was boiling down concepts for proprietary software. And I made a series of videos called Flat Earth Clues and put them out there, kind of like a cry for help to the internet hive mind, right? And said, okay, I don't think it's a globe anymore. Here's why. Boom, 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 boom. Listed my points. And if anyone, and then of course I was dumb enough, like anything. It's like, well, I'm going to put my phone number and my email address.
I see that it's everywhere.
Yeah. It's like, okay, here. Yeah. It's like, well, because I want people to call me. I wanted people to tell me where I went wrong. Especially some academic. I wanted somebody with a PhD to call me up and say, okay, you forgot to carry the 2. You can shut down your channel now. It's like, okay, good, great. And I held my breath for a couple months, and immediately the calls started coming and the emails started coming. But not where I thought they were coming from. They came from just general people, and then they came from people that wanted to interview me, and then they started coming from subject matter experts. I got a big list of people from all different walks of life who are tied to the shape of this world in one way or another, and they all kept saying the same thing. It's like, you know what? You may be onto something here. And I was going, oh, please don't tell me that. Please don't tell me that. I didn't want to be right. Did not want to be right in the beginning. And that's how I got started. Was there one particular moment that turned me to where I wouldn't go back to the globe? Yeah, it was the television broadcast there was a CBS affiliate called the Longines Chronoscope, Longines.
Oh, right. Okay.
Chronoscope with Admiral Byrd, who was on there, because I love systems and I love people, and I like, if you're a gamer and you pick up patterns, we're natural at picking up patterns of things and how things work and how things are supposed to act.
Sure.
And when he came on television and said that, oh yeah, everyone is going to be down in Antarctica for the next 100 years. The place is made out of money. And then right after his next mission, they all left the ice like it was on fire and locked it down. Corporate from a corporate standpoint forever. The only treaty in the world that's never been broken. It's like, wait a minute. I go, what happened down there? It's like, they just put a big padlock on it and said, good night, everybody.
And everybody's cool with it.
And everybody, that was the other thing. Everybody was cool with it. Not only did all the countries sign off on it, even countries that were hostile. I think North Korea signed off on this, right? Not only did everybody sign off on it, but nobody even protested it. Meaning, there's people that want the resources. Look, Russia was rebuilding after World War II. Great Britain was rebuilding, and nobody, you look it up online. You cannot find a story. It's like, such and such country wants to get into Antarctica. Nope. You don't talk about it. You just sign your paper. You shut up and you let the world do what it does. And that's for me. It's like, okay, I see. Because when I was building it myself in the thought experiment, okay, how would I build the world and then hide it, or keep it hidden? The moves that they made after 1956 were exactly them. In fact, I could not come up with better, more efficient versions of what they had. It's like, oh yeah, it seems like it's heavy-handed and kind of ham-fisted, but they were really brilliant moves, and it held on for 60 years. Anyway, sorry, a little rant.
I think my number one question about that is, so what is Antarctica? Is it there? Or
Antarctica is absolutely there, but it's not what you're shown in pictures, because the pictures are all fake. Meaning, think of it this way. Eventually, remember, up until 1972 was the first blue marble shot.
Yes.
Up until then, we didn't even have a full disc shot of the Earth. So eventually you're going to have to take that shot. Unfortunately, you can't just hand pictures to people, because what's the first question? It's like, oh, yeah, how'd you take it? So you have to actually simulate a technology. Well, luckily we had weapons technology that could simulate it fairly easily. We just had to scale it up. And then, then show it to the people. So the pictures were shown. I know it's tough because it's radio, right? Yeah. So people say, okay, Antarctica, what's Antarctica look like? It looks like, if you believe mainstream, it looks like an island continent similar to Australia in shape and size, roughly, right? Big, only it's big and snowy. Instead of Australia being brown, it's white because it's all covered in ice, thousands and thousands of feet of ice. But in reality, if this world is not a globe, but a dinner plate or a snow globe or a pizza box or a terrarium or plant or whatever you want to call it,
right.
Sort of flat disc that's covered with something, then Antarctica can't be an island continent. Well, I mean, I suppose it could, but eventually you're going to have to get to the edge. So instead, Antarctica is much, much larger. And it stretches all the way around the outside, like the edge of a bathtub. Because people say, "Oh, why wouldn't the water fall off?" It's like, no. Why doesn't the water fall off in a lake? Because you've got an edge, and the edge is elevated.
Right. Questions like that are just so stupid. But
no, I get them. I understand it. I mean, people. Well, you got to remember, you show people pictures of a cosmic waterfall enough, and Thor didn't help. Enough of those, and people are like, "Oh yeah, it's stupid," because the water, you'd have to create a spring, and then this endless spring, and the water would always flow out, and ships would eventually go off the edge. So, the Antarctica, but even mainstream description of Antarctica, they give it away, and that is when you get to Antarctica, the coastline, most of it is a 200-foot high. I mean, it's not as high as Game of Thrones wall of ice, but it's like a 200-foot high wall of ice. And then if you can get on top of that, remember, it takes a while. You got to have some serious technology just to get on top of that. You can't do this back in the 1800s or even early 1900s. It's a stretch. So once you get on top of that, Antarctica slopes up to a plateau of about 14,000 feet. And that's most of the continent they even declare. They say, yeah, most of it's at 14,000 feet, and it goes up to 20,000 feet in some cases. Well, altitude sickness starts kicking in at 7,000 feet. So and there's no indigenous plant life, no animal life, no ancient ruins. Well, I mean, I'm sure there's some, but it's like there's nothing out there. So if you're going to do exploring, you got to take your own food and probably most of your own water, unless you're melting snow. The whole place just screams go away.
Right. There's no reason to be there if you're not doing some level of exploring or pulling oil out.
Oh, exactly. Pulling oil, pulling minerals and stuff like that. And so when the Antarctic Treaty was put in place in 1959, that was also a big flag because, remember, environmentalism wasn't a thing. back in '59. Nobody cared about environmentalism. It was like, you kidding? The faster the cars went, that's great. And
it wasn't until the '70s where we really sold on much of anything.
Yeah. Greenpeace wasn't even founded until the early '70s, and that was just a couple guys in a raft and some tie-dye shirts.
I think it still is. No.
Right. Yeah. Now it's 3 rafts and they're designer tie-dye shirts.
Right.
But yeah, that's what Antarctica, and yeah, it's locked down. The treaty says that no corporation from any country can do work down there ever, and it's not even up for debate until 2041. And it's just like, what do you talk about with the amount of resources, the price of gas? When oil hit $100 a barrel, you don't think there'd be some people saying, "Yeah, maybe we should go down there"? Nope. No, you can do the North Pole all day long. South there, can't do it.
Things like that kind of. Are you familiar with peak oil?
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, how can you do that? How can you lock down an entire tremendous resource?
Yeah,
when you're talking about peak oil and trying to sell us carbon credits and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, America. not to get off on a side note, but I mean, America can launch all the military invasions it wants to get the oil, and yet it won't go to a place that's unoccupied.
Right there. Yeah.
Come on, you'll spend billions and billions of dollars. And I know you make money in the whole weapon system program, but come on, it's right there for easy pickings, but you can't. And you're saying, why can't you? It's, well, because oil companies have a lot of resources, and they have a lot of helicopters, and they have a lot of planes, and they have a lot of technology. And sooner or later, somebody's going to screw up. They're going to go too far. They're going to go to a place they shouldn't be. And you can't allow that. I mean, it's a very, very short discussion, among the powers that be. It's like, well, what do we do if a plane goes off course? Well, we're going to have to take care of that. How many times can you do that? And finally, they say, you know what? It's going to be more trouble than it's worth. Let's just lock it down. The money isn't worth it. And it's like that right there should be the biggest red flag of all. When do you hear that when you're talking about billions, if not trillions of dollars? The money isn't worth it.
Right. So, I mean, if you know let's hypothetically say that we understand exactly what's going on. We have enough. That's basically what they're saying. We have more than enough oil.
Right. Yeah, the coal doesn't make any difference. Yeah, the mountain range is made out of coal. Yeah, that wouldn't interest anybody. The minerals tied around that wouldn't interest anybody. The uranium that Admiral Byrd's talking about on national television, which most people don't even know what uranium is in 1954, and he's talking about it, and he's saying, well, maybe I shouldn't be talking about that. It's like, oh, you wonder why you died a few years later. It's because you got too used to the cameras and too used to he was the greatest explorer we ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And God bless him, he got the job done finally. It took him a long time. I'm sorry, why should back up a little bit, why Admiral Byrd was even there. He was ordered there from 1928 literally until his last mission in 1956, looking for something. Flying down there, just he flew his own planes, and the planes got better and better for you can imagine, from the 20s to the 50s.
Sure.
And he just kept flying and flying and flying, and to the point where I think even the powers that be gave up. They're like, you know what? Screw it. We have no idea, what the shape of the world, really, we don't know what the outer marker looks like. So we're not going to even, let's just carve this place up. Let's make money. And then, of course, Murphy's Law kicks in. The second they do that, they figure it out in Operation Deep Freeze. And that's when the world changed.
That's what it's called, Operation Deep Freeze.
Yeah.
So does GPS work in Antarctica? And where does it stop working if it doesn't?
That's just it. I don't know, because Antarctica is so limited. The Antarctic Treaty is no joke. I mean, it is. There's been a bunch of videos that we've, guys that have gone through this thing with a fine-tooth comb, and you cannot. There's so many permits, international permits, you have to get to go out there. I suppose you could take some sort of thing and go out there and see where it drops off.
My Garmin, I don't think my Garmin's going to be is up to snuff.
Exactly. There was this line that the Canadian guy, was saying when he was at that meeting out in the Hamptons with those NASA guys, and it was a creepy line. It's a great movie line. I hope it gets used one day, where they were talking about, each one of these guys in there would manage different aspects of NASA and military guys, and they said, yeah, I heard GPS doesn't work out there, and hey, Fred, you ought to send a team out there to confirm that. And then finally the X-Files smoking guy comes in. he goes, well, if he sends a team that far out, they're not coming back.
God.
It's like the room gets quiet. It's like, well, why wouldn't they be coming back? It's like, well, because GPS doesn't work out there. And it's like,
that's horrible. I mean, just
I
can picture the guy saying, and it's like, yeah, Harry's a stand-up comedian. It's that's just exactly the kind of thing that they would say.
Yeah, because it's you let them. It becomes tactical more than anything. It's like, don't waste your time. Don't spend any effort thinking about this. And then the rest of that story was the guy proceeded to take a piece of chalk, because it was his house apparently, and draw on the tile floor, on the cement kind of area. He basically drew out the entire world, how it looked, and including the thermodynamics and how energy works and transfers. And when he was done, it would be a great movie shot. He pulls back, and he'd basically drawn the UN flag on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the UN, you're saying, why do you mean the UN flag? If you ever looked at the UN flag, it overlays onto the flat Earth map perfectly.
Yeah, I've heard that and looked at it, and but it's missing Antarctica, of course.
But it's missing Antarctica, which is, again, and people go, and critics have come back and say, well, no, there's no room to put Antarctica, right? It doesn't show up. I'm going, really? Because I've seen logos that were made 50 years ago. Where, you just use the Mercator map, you put Antarctica on the bottom, you put it on a globe face. It doesn't make sense, of course, but people would get it, and there's your UN flag right there.
Yeah, aside from a coder and all of this stuff, I'm also a graphic designer. And yeah. I don't know how a client would, I don't know how I would respond to a client who said, well, no, you have to add this in. Okay. And I say, no, there's no room.
Right. Yeah.
That's a solution that comes, you find a solution or you're fired.
Yeah. And do you say that Antarctica, you don't put it on there because nobody owns it? Which, of course, is a whole nother thing. Oh my God, I could go on this forever and ever. Yeah. The fact that there's a piece of real estate out there, a giant piece of real estate that nobody owns. And everybody owns everything. Look, I use the Lex Luthor line, which is like, it's real estate, It's the one thing we're not making any more of.
Yeah.
Well, unless you count Hawaii, which I don't really count.
By the minute.
Yeah, by the minute. Although I don't think they're going to be putting any condos on them soon. But it's Antarctica is a fantastic place to start if you're looking at this thing.
So is it your opinion that the nations and the people who run these nations, I'm going to say people who are above, say, President Trump, know the Earth is not what the general public thinks it is?
They may hear about it in whispers, but until you know, you don't know.
But is this, do you feel, is a discovery that is being covered up? And if what is the harm of releasing this information when it was discovered?
I thought about that for about 5 minutes when I was looking into this thing. It's like, okay, I love my skill at empathy, putting myself in the other person's shoes. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, how bad could it be? Right. And think about the smoking man meeting, right? It's like, okay, they sit down at a table. It's like, all right, what if we release it to the public? Somebody says, well, you saw what happened with that whole Roswell thing, and people got pretty antsy about that. It's like, okay, no, seriously, what would really happen? It's like, okay, let's say we did roll this thing out in 1957, 1958.
And that's when you feel as though the discovery may have been uncovered.
Solidified. Yeah.
Okay.
They knew only in old maps. But remember, until you prove it for yourself, what do you really know? So let's say the King of France has a map in 1500 that shows what the world really looks like. Well, what can you do with that in 1500? I mean, you got ships, wooden ships, you got some horses, what are you seriously? What are you going to do? How can you exploit this in any way, shape, or form? And literally until the internal combustion engine was made, you can't do anything with this information. So let's say they finally, and so they're looking for it. They're looking for it from the North Pole expedition with Admiral Byrd, again shrouded in mystery. It was in 1926, and once they did that, it's like, okay, if that's the center, let's find the freaking outer edge. And then they look for 30 years and they can't find it, and then they finally find it, and then it's like, okay, it's real. What do we do? And it's like, well, if we tell the population, what's the worst that could happen? You want, because the truth is out there. You want to tell the public, but there's an old saying by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, one of our older presidents during World War II.
Never heard of him. I'm just
That's funny. Yeah, FDR, as he's known, who said, he had a really good quote. He goes, "Only give the people as much truth as they can handle." And there's different versions of that, but I like that one because it's like, it's true. Sometimes you can't, because some things are better left unsaid. I go on and on. So immediately overnight, every university in the world, astrophysics and astronomy courses just shut. Those doors shut permanently. They're done. And the remaining physical sciences, take your pick: geology, hydrology, biology, archaeology. It goes on and on. Those have to be literally rebuilt from the ground up. Some play on words there. And that's just the academic part, right? That's every university. The academic chaos would be staggering. Economically, especially nowadays, you would have to shut down global markets for a couple months. I mean, shut them down. Period. Nobody trades, nothing, until we can figure out exactly what it means. And the arguments, I mean, what does this mean to an average economy? What does this mean to military suppliers? What does this mean to anybody that does it? Oh my God, there's so many different aspects economically that you would have to analyze. I mean, even small things, and the market fluctuates up and down. If Trump got pneumonia tomorrow, the market would have a problem. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you're saying, oh yeah, by the way, the world's flat, and this is part of you're in a snow globe.
It's too big of a lie now. I mean, I'm giving full credence to, let's hypothetically say the Earth is flat today.
Right.
Now you're saying it was we solidified that as a fact, let's say 60 years ago.
Right.
And for 60 years, we, more than just one generation,
right,
we have, I mean, the powers that be basically lied over and over and over and over again.
Right.
It's too late now. Like, no matter what, it couldn't, there's almost no reason to believe, unless aliens were to land, this could be the news, this could be on page 2.
Right.
That's about it.
Think of the big one though. Think of this. Imagine that, because remember, science, I love science. I really do, even though I'm currently one of the people that's heading the charge against scientism, but that's a whole nother thing we'll get into.
Your name is a trigger. It's amazing.
Well, it is right now. Yeah. That's for sure.
It's wild.
But science, I know, I love air conditioning, light bulbs, microwave ovens, even though the average person doesn't know how a microwave oven works. That's fine. But here's the big thing. Science has been beating all religions over the head for hundreds of years, way before this thing. And now all of a sudden you're shifting the balance of power back to the religious institutions, all 5 of them, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, Christianity. You're basically going to them, you're giving all of them what they want simultaneously. And you're saying, oh yeah, by the way, science was really wrong about a very, very big thing. And if that's the case, and which I kind of talked about this in the clue, as I said, religion has a responsibility not to seek revenge. I mean, like that hasn't happened in the religious world ever.
Right. I mean, there's a place called Israel.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm looking at you, Crusades and the Inquisition, and all those early times.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So if that happens, all of a sudden you start questioning science. Like, okay, so you were wrong about this. What else are you wrong about? What's your stance on evolution and carbon dating and the Big Bang Theory and a lot of these things? Again, not my intent. But that would be the natural progression of it. So you combine all those three things. That's one of the shortest smoking room meetings ever. It's like, because if even there's a 10% chance that the population is going to walk through the streets with pitchforks and torches, they're not going to do it. Now, fast forward to now, where everything is in place to get the story straight simultaneously, something we've never ever had, where you've got 6 billion mobile phones in the world, and a social network is everybody's integrated. You could put a story out there, and most of the phone people would get it. They'd be able to read it and compare notes to each other within 30 minutes, if that. And you could spin, if you wanted to, you could spin this story. If you wanted to release it, you could do it now. And I don't think civilization would collapse. I think you might be able to go the other way. That wonderful stat that came out from u.gov, where they did a little census of the American population. And apparently 18 to 24-year-olds, like a third of them were already on board with this. And it's like, yeah, I don't think it's a globe. And that was a really scary thought for science, because of course they're more pliable. And, not to say that they're kind of drone-ish, but I mean, they are married to their phones more or less. And they, looked at this. And so I think we've got a shot at turning this into something good. And I'm trying to stay glass half full.
Yeah. I mean, as a culture, we're definitely, I think every generation is currently addicted to their mobile internet.
Oh, yeah,
device.
yeah. No question. I have to consciously keep it away from me. In fact, my phone's on the ground right now. My first cell phone I bought 3 years ago, not including the company ones.
Really? Okay. So you did use cell.
Oh, yeah, I did use cell phones, but they weren't mine. It was like, just company. I mean, flip phones and crap like that. But my first smartphone I bought 3 years ago, and I have never sent a text in my life.
It's interesting because when I forget my phone at home, yeah. I have kind of a panic for about 5 minutes, and then I stop caring. And then I feel liberated, and I feel.
But you're old enough too. Yeah. You're old enough to break away from it, because you remember a time. You're but 5 years younger than me. You remember a time when there wasn't a thing. It was not even a thing. No. People spent so much money just talking on cell phones.
Although I got a phone early. I got my phone in 1999.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's nearly 20 years ago. So
yeah,
it is, something that I've had all the time. But what I am noticing with my son's generation, this gives me hope for humanity, is he forgets his phone. He doesn't go on his phone. He's more focused on the iPad, not just for gaming.
Oh, yeah.
Not just for gaming, but as a communication device. And he can send his friend a text, and he doesn't need to get a response from them right away. Or he'll say, well, I'll see them later, or anything like that. And he's even bringing up the concept of, my house is about 100 years old, and it's, and in the kitchen when we bought the house, it had one of those plates, for our phone, like when we were kids.
Oh, yeah.
And I was at a garage sale, and I found one that matched the kitchen perfectly. And I just thought, I'm going to put up a dummy phone. It's kind of, it fits there. It's better than a metal plate.
Yeah.
And he's like, why don't we turn it on? And I said, because we don't have a house phone.
But I wonder if you even could have done it if the phone company, if there was even an existing line.
Question. Well, we have, the house is wired with whoever had the house before us. These very nice people who decided to spend too much and then get out and sell for very little. They redid the entire wiring of the house, so everything is beautifully updated, including the phone lines. And we have hardwired Ethernet everywhere. It's really, actually, I'm very happy about that.
Oh, that's good. That's cool.
But so I'm going to imagine if I did make the call to Verizon, they could probably flip a switch and turn it on.
Nice.
I'm not ready yet, but
maybe one day.
Cool. Yeah. It might be kind of cool to have, pick it up and have a dial tone.
Yeah.
I don't know who I'll call you.
Yeah, you should. And say, look, I'm calling from my landline. Yeah, I mean, I use my computer as a landline, but that's because Skype has such a great audio quality compared to everything else. Like, who would have thought?
I have a co-host for this show. His name is Alex, and he's in Vietnam for the next few months. He met a girl, and they're just kind of going through this whole thing. And when I speak to him, it's like he lives here in Astoria, not here in Astoria. He lives in Astoria in New York, and it's like he's right in Astoria, but he's in Vietnam, and it's really amazing. And then I'll speak to him on the phone once in a blue moon, and it's like, oh my God, this is just It's like a tin can or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing that people got anything done. Oh, hell, I remember even just growing up not that long ago where, talking to my grandparents when they were just on vacation in Hawaii. And, there was a delay and it was hollow and it was just, just awful. But, fiber optics now have changed just about everything.
Did you have caller waiting and stuff like that? I remember getting caller waiting or what was
call waiting? Call waiting. What we did was eventually my sister and I got a dedicated line, mostly because of my sister, teenage girls back in the day.
Yeah.
It's like, can I get my own line?
And a neon phone.
Yeah.
Like one of those neon light up phones. I do have a few questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just wanted to throw it your way. All right. So with the other celestial bodies that we see in the sky, including the sun, the moon, other planets that I can take my telescope and see something up there.
Yeah.
Are these globes?
Globes only in the sense that you perceive them as globes.
Okay.
Meaning, they might be globes, but you're not going to them and you're not landing on them because they're just on the ceiling. The argument I throw at people is, again, I'm old enough to remember this back in the day, even though I didn't go to a lot of Laser Floyd and Laser Led Zeppelin, the planetarium.
I did.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. The Vanderbilt and stuff.
But so you'll get my point, which is, look, planetariums have had, which is an old technology, have the ability to project anything they want up there. When I tell people, I say, look, you take a pair of binoculars, go to a planetarium, look at Jupiter. And I go, does it look more or less real with your binoculars? It's like, well, that's not really a fair question because I'm in a building. I go, that's my point. Who's to say when you walk out of that one, you're just not in a much, much bigger building? A building so big that we couldn't even figure out what the shape of it was for the first 4,000 years and change. That's what I'm talking about. It's so built with a technology that's far, far beyond what we have now.
So you're thinking of a snow globe, really? Something that's enclosed, a dome, a base.
But it doesn't have to be that arched. It could be like a sports stadium. Like
you're saying, it could be square.
It could be square. In fact, again, if you, from an engineering standpoint, eventually, of course, the outer disk could be round. Like again, a dinner plate, but a dinner plate inside a cake box. Ooh, that's not bad. I just thought of that. Which is because remember, computers don't like circles; they like angles. Try to tell a computer how to make a circle. Eventually, when it's the reason why it's called a pixel.
Right.
Yeah, the pixels
720 plot points.
Yeah, exactly. You get smaller and smaller and smaller, but they're still squares. This place could be a giant. I try to say building because when I say building, people do think, or I say like a Hollywood soundstage, a perfect example of that. Hollywood soundstage, you can build anything you want inside it, any shape, but the outside of it is just one big rectangle in some shape or another.
And here's something that I'm just a lot of people are always saying, well, if you go high up enough, you see a curvature of the Earth. Now, even again, say we are a snow globe that's a circle, right?
Right.
Not a box, not the plate inside the pizza box. Okay. But there would be a curvature either way that you would appear. It would be a different perception because one would be the edge across and the other one would be a three-dimensional type of.
Yeah, if you could see, because there would be a curvature, but
eventually.
You'd have to be able to. Yeah, you'd have to be able to see that far. And I, again, unless you were out in the tip of South America, then maybe you could see it. But remember, our visual distance, like there was an SR-71 pilot I remember reading an article on where he said when he was flying over Arizona at 70,000 feet, he could see Los Angeles. And I thought that was pretty interesting because, again, when you get up high enough, and one of the reasons why he could see that far is because the atmosphere was so thin. Remember, down here, a common question I get for people from people. Well, one is let me answer that thing you just said, which was I say, okay, fine. You think you see the curvature. Take a picture of it, put it on your laptop or tablet or whatever you use, and put a straight edge up to it and tell me, do you still see it? Do you still see the curvature? If you do, send a picture to me and I'll quit Flat Earth tomorrow. Nobody's ever sent me a picture of that. But people say, hey, like the standard argument. I don't think it's a stupid argument. They say, hey, why don't we see Japan from California, from San Francisco? And I say, well, mostly it's because what you're breathing now is, going to use the movie line, mostly transparent, kind of like mostly dead. Mostly transparent, meaning you're looking through 4 parts nitrogen and 1 part oxygen. You're only going to be able to see so far. It's going to turn into a soup sooner or later, and it's going to get all distorted. But if you took it out, if you took the atmosphere away, you might actually be, and make sure there's no weather between you and them, you might actually be able to see Japan with the right lens. It might be possible.
I mean, it's just kind of interesting to me because I'm thinking, all right, if I'm going down this route and I'm saying, well, I don't believe it's a globe. I'm kind of going towards more of a flat Earth cube or a square, because regardless of how high you go, it's a straight edge. And I haven't seen this either. A lot of people will take a picture and it'll be curved glass or 120 degree lens or 170 degree lens. GoPros are very famous for this fisheye.
GoPro has actually replaced the term in terms of fisheye. People don't even say fisheye anymore. They say GoPro, which is weird.
I have the Sony version of the GoPro because I feel as though the sound is a lot better. And in there it's just straight fixed 120, I think, and then 170 degrees. And you see like a tremendous difference. And I can put it on 170 and hold it over my head. Everything looks curved.
Yeah. What surprised me was when the Red Bull jump. Oh man, the Red Bull jump wreak havoc with us, because there were so many people, because the mainstream media used that famous shot where it's a severe fisheye lens because he's only at 120,000 feet, but it looks more dramatic because he's in he's got his helmet on and everything. He's like, wow, he's so high up he can see the curvature of the Earth. And it's like, not unless the curvature of the Earth, or the Earth is only as big as Arizona. And yet when he's inside the capsule, that's what gave him away. When there's a shot where he's looking out the portal, and that is perfectly flat. Outside the portal, with the lens was behind him in the back of the capsule. Yeah. So, and plus I've got video a wonderful video of 100. He was at 128,000. I think the video I've got is 120,000, where it's absolutely flat. It all comes down to the freaking lens that you're using. But I have yet to run it. It kills me that people still to this day will say, I was on a plane and I saw the curve. And I'm not kidding when I say that people have written me and said, I was on the beach and I saw the curve.
That's come on.
That's a bit Orwellian at that point. It's like really? Do you see 5 lights or only 4? Because
there could be an optical illusion. Here on Long Island, we go down to there's Rockaway Beach and Long Beach. And if you stand there, because where you are standing, it kind of wraps around you from left to right. Mm-hmm. I mean, you kind of get this effect.
Oh, sure.
It's like that. But like you said, there's no way to see
There's no way. And I know you want to see the curve, which is why when I'm dealing with people, like I'm going down to Los Angeles to be with National Geographic, because some debunking group is going to shoot long distance photography across this salt lake.
They're going to crush you.
No, we've already done this test like 100 times already. This guy is going to shoot. I can tell you exactly what he's going to do. He's going to shoot it. He's going to get some refraction or Fata Morgana effect. Immediately he's going to say that's the curve. He's absolutely is the curve, and we have so much video. I've gotten dizzy from looking at it. In fact, we just sent one of our best teams to Hungary. They shot a laser at 40 kilometers across a frozen lake. That's really where you want to shoot it. You want to shoot in cold weather. You don't want to shoot it with warm weather, because then warm weather you get that hazy stuff that's on the water. Mm-hmm. No different than a hot road. You look down a hot road and people are disappearing off in the distance. It's like it's a perfectly flat road, and all of a sudden their legs are gone. And the same thing happens. So I get it. You know, he's outside of Los Angeles. It's the only body of water he can choose. It's still going to be a terrible, terrible test. And I completely lost my train of thought where I was going with this because I went off into the weeds and I can't find my way back.
That's all right. Well, I do have another question. It's definitely one you've heard.
Okay.
And it's usually, and I looked into it and I got a weird answer. So, you know, in North America and Australia, the water, when you flush it, when it goes down the drain, it goes I believe clockwise in North America. In Australia, it's counterclockwise. Same thing with the stars. And what I came across was the dual Earth theory, which I'm not really buying into. I buy into a lot less.
No, don't buy it. In fact, the example I use, and I have heard of this before, but it took me a while to really get an answer I was happy with, and that is there's a great. The short answer is a myth. They do not spin in opposite directions, whether you're North Pole or South Pole. It's absolutely just comes down to how the water is being shot into whatever basin you're talking about. And the example I use is a very, very popular YouTube channel called Smarter Every Day, where you probably run into this guy, real happy, optimistic guy, full of energy, like he's on drugs all the time.
Bill Nye or something.
Better than Bill Nye. I don't think Bill Nye, but
I don't like Bill Nye.
He's better than Vsauce. He's a guy that does experiments all the time. It's like, do cats always land on their feet? And does this happen?
Okay.
And does this kind of like a little, not a Mythbusters, but trying to explain things. And he did one called Toilet Water. And what he did was he was really confused about this because he wanted to know for sure. And so he had the resources. And so he set up this kids wading pool in the northern hemisphere, the north part of the United States. And then he simultaneously, literally at the same time, down in Australia, he had a friend, the exact same wading pool. I mean, everything, both sides were built exactly to spec. Both were identical, where there was a center drain. This is a big kids wading pool with this center drain. They waded, roughly the same temperature. The water was absolutely still. They'd waited for hours on this. They were sitting there, both on a conference call, and they were both going to pull the drains at the same time. But before they did that, they wanted to make sure which way the water went. And so even to make sure they disturbed the water almost not at all, they used an eyedropper with food coloring and put, markers like a cross pattern across this entire pool. And they both pulled the drains at the same time. And the effect. One, he couldn't even get it consistent, but it was so unbelievably gradual. Like he goes, it's almost non-existent. To where he goes, look, I hate to tell people this, but whatever you're seeing with the toilets going down, really fast, or the sinks or whatever, he goes, that is not the case. It is not a thing. And I trust the guy. He's got millions of subs, and he's really good about the detail in his tests. And I couldn't have come up with a test better than that. So no.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a wives' tale. It could just be.
I think it is. I think it's just one of those things that was. Remember, how many little urban myths we put out there that we believe, and this one was it's a small one, and it doesn't even really come up that much. The one that I'm sorry, the one that I forgot earlier. The one that comes up more than anything is that, again, it's something that's been passed down from generation to generation, is the ships going off in the distance over the horizon.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That is number one, without a doubt. Everyone knows this, right? It's like, no, the ships go off into the horizon. It's like, no, what do you see? You've heard this, right? Because of the curvature of the Earth, right? You've heard this. But what do you see? The ship just gets smaller and smaller, and then it disappears. And everyone says, well, it's because of the curvature. The reason why that has changed, up until literally about 15 years ago, I would have bought it too. It was like, fine. But now with HD and digital zoom, now that boat is not gone. That's where it gets weird. And you've probably seen some of the zoom in, zoom out shots that are out there. The boat goes out, and
we can also measure the distance as well.
Sure. Yeah. You can measure that, you have little land markers. You can tell how far these boats are. And the boat's gone. And then you crank up your digital zoom. Hey, the boat's back. It's like, well, and then the boat's gone again. And then you crank it up a little more. Hey, the boat's back. Well, sooner or later, the curvature of the Earth should make that impossible. Remember, you can't see over the side of a hill. Right? And you can say, well, light's bending. And it's like, no, it's not a mirage, because I've got military guys. One of my first guests who said that, oh, yeah, by the way, we're targeting ship to ship. We're not bouncing off any atmosphere. We're painting the target for our Sparrow missile system at 50 nautical.
And the theory is that gravity is consistent. So,
yeah,
it should be the same. It should curve because gravity.
There should. Yeah, and he says, look, it goes, unless we're blowing up mirages with missile systems, 100% accuracy, then we don't see a curve at 50 nautical miles.
I never heard of that. I never saw these videos, and that's something I think I'll. That's what's so wonderful about YouTube and technology. Like, you could do these tests like in Australia, or you can find these things, and you go down these great, rabbit holes, and it's like, oh my God, what am I watching at 4 a.m?
Exactly. The people that they get into flat Earth, they usually lose sleep for a couple of weeks. And
I definitely lost sleep a few times.
Oh yeah, I tell people, I go, look, honestly, if you're happy the way things are right now in the world, or your world, how you perceive the world, don't look at this. Don't do it. Because if you go down this road, one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to get really, really frustrated and say that flat earthers are crazy, and I'm just going to try to drag yourself out of the rabbit hole and say it's fine. But of course, the back of your head, you're going, there's something there. Or you're going to go the other way, and you're going to look at it and say, holy smokes, the world is not what I think it is. And again, it was just why it's so polarizing, why people go through the 5 stages of acceptance, and they get mad. I mean, again, the National Geographic thing I'm doing, that is only because there's I did a podcast similar to this a few months ago, and they were trying to convince me. They were going the other way. They were going on the offensive, saying that it wasn't, and they couldn't even make a dent in what I was saying, and that bugged them so much that they actually got a hold of a professional debunker in Los Angeles, and they were the ones that decided to do this test months later. They're still doing this. I'm going to meet them again down there. It's like, all right, take your best shot. It's a little late now,
So again, we're saying in about 1958 is when
things changed.
Well, yeah, things completely changed. I think is that the birth of NASA as well.
Yeah, NASA. Yeah, again, if you believe in coincidences, and I don't, you run into your neighbor at the grocery store, that's a coincidence.
Yeah, if you're walking your dog and it's the same kind of dog, that's a coincidence.
Yeah, there's little coincidences, but when all of a sudden, when the Antarctic, when Operation Deep Freeze happens in 1956, they start drafting the treaty in 1957. NASA is formed. Oh, well, on top of that, those other little things like the high altitude atomic testing that was done by the United States and the Soviet Union for 4 years straight from 58 to 62. And then after those first 3 shots, NASA is formed in 1958. In 1959, the Van Allen radiation belts are announced, the high level.
Yeah,
now don't ever go up that high. Super deadly. And in 1959, simultaneously, the Antarctic Treaty is ratified. I'm sorry, there's too many broad strokes that all point to the same thing. And that is, if you wanted to lock down the upper edge and the outer edge of this world, that's exactly what you would do. So you militarize space in 1958. Only the military can go up there. And then in 1959, you say, oh, by the way, if you're thinking privately of going up there, you'll probably die. And then 1959, they very quietly say, in Antarctica, we're not going to talk about that anymore.
Right.
and that was it. And that held on for a long, long time.
So what was it, in 63, I think Kennedy made the public statement that we're going to the moon. I think it was.
I believe it was 62. Okay. Yeah, we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing.
Like, was he just crazy for doing this? And do you think the powers that be just kind of said, what the hell did he just say?
I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Because going to the moon, not 7 years later,
right.
Or about 7 years later, versus saying, oh, by the way, your whole reality is not what you think it is. Here's some new maps, and releasing that out kind of slowly. I just feel like it's a really far way to go to create this entire scenario of going to the moon versus saying, you know what, let's just pull the Band-Aid off and let's.
It's a nice idea, but think about it. It's only money. When we're talking about NASA, and no, I've heard this argument before.
I'm sure you've heard all of this.
I have, but it's okay. Which is, but the way you worded it was good. Which is okay. Thanks. Why spend that much money to create NASA and the space program? Probably $1 trillion in adjusted dollars, but it's over 50 years. It starts out small. it's kind of like the tangled web we weave, right? The lies start out small, which is okay. We got to release a picture sooner or later. Plus, we got to keep. We got to get this moon thing knocked out. We got to take a picture of the world. We'll go to the moon. Pretend we're going to go to the moon, and then make it so nonchalant at some point. It's like, nobody cares about the moon anymore. Let's shut it down. Good night, everybody. And that's really what they did. They went rapid succession. We've never had that sort of success ever since. Not in the shuttle program, not in the ISS. I mean, the moon and back 6 times. Remember, it wasn't just Apollo 11. It was Apollo, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, all the way up to Apollo 17. Rapid fire. Nobody died. During all these 6 trips, you would have thought these guys would have, some mistake would have been made.
No illnesses either, right? There was no depression, even in their older age.
Well, most of them did turn to the bottle. But that was for that was for a different reason, though.
They grew up as pilots, though. I mean, they grew up probably starting on the bottle.
Yeah. All right, I'll give you that.
All right.
So
I don't want to talk bad about the people, but
no. I mean, but remember, I also think the Apollo program was the only guys that they kind of leveled with, where they said, okay, you're going to be fit. The astronaut recruitment program, I think, was absolutely real. The Right Stuff, the movie, I think these guys went in.
I love the movie.
I
love it.
It was a great movie. Let's be heroes. Let's be heroes. And then it turned into the Capricorn 1 movie, where it's like they pull them out and they say, okay, look, we got to fake this, and we're going to tell you why. And then you'll kind of understand. And then I think it weighed very, very heavily on them to where they couldn't. They had a really, really hard time dealing with it. To where now the easier way of going with astronauts is just say, okay, look, you're going to sign this agreement, this disclosure agreement that says basically you don't even. It's not even in your pay grade to ask us why you're doing what you're doing.
That same smoking man probably in the room.
Yeah. Well, same. He doesn't even really have to be there, but yeah, he'd probably be observing. Where it's kind of like what they do with spies. It's like, okay, you're going to go like with a lot of military stuff. Remember, all these guys are military. Yeah. Where like, okay, you're going to go do this, but you're paid to follow orders. You're not paid to ask questions, and so that lets them off the hook from an ego standpoint, and it leaves them sort of intact to do what they want to do. Swinging back to your question, would President Trump have to know? No, he wouldn't. Neil deGrasse Tyson wouldn't have to know. Not everything, because it still whispers. Until you know, you don't know. Use the example, if your spouse is cheating on you, right? If you suspect this, okay, until you know for sure, it's still just a suspicion. So you're not fully engaged. So having Neil deGrasse Tyson go around and do his stuff, space is amazing. His little Jack in the Box routine.
No, I don't really care for him. He's an actor. He's great. He's a great PR person.
He's a great PR. They are lucky to have him. He is that.
Better than Bill Nye, the fake science guy.
Oh, don't get me started with Bill Nye.
I mean, he's a good actor too. Though.
Well,
he does what he does well, I think.
I'm from Seattle. I know where his acting background came from. He was a local comedian up here. Well, not even a comedian, a comedy troupe that was up here in Seattle. And it wasn't even his idea to create Bill Nye. It was the guy that created the show, Ross Schaefer. He was the one that said, hey, because he kind of, let's face it, the man looks like he could have been in Revenge of the Nerds. He just like put a white jacket on, put the bow tie, and then apparently the media can't stop asking him his opinion on things. It's like, what's your opinion on quantum physics and the Mars rover? And let's invite you to the White House, have some screen time with Obama. It's like, what are you talking about? The guy's got a bachelor's in mechanical.
Right.
And he gave that up almost immediately for acting. But I get it. He's good.
Hey, there's a big paycheck at the end of that. And I might not agree with what he says or why he's doing it, but I guess I can't blame him either for taking basically probably his life dream of getting big paychecks.
Yeah,
and running with it.
He did. He milked it for. And where he really lucked out is that Disney bought the rights to it and then put it in syndication for a while. Remember, he only did it for like 5 years. He wasn't like an institution like Electric Company and Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers. He only did it for 5 years, but they kept rerunning it. Disney doesn't care. And I thought it was ironic that, what was it, just earlier this year, he tries to sue them for like $8 million in back pay.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, it's like, really, dude. Really, that's gonna be your legacy with Disney. Apparently, you're gonna burn those bridges pretty.
Well, word
pretty
is
bad.
he's notoriously a cheap person. Him and Ed Begley Jr. are both like notoriously, like they're really, really sold on the climate changing, and they're both notoriously cheap.
I can actually do one more. I don't mind saying this. Do you know who I think there's one guy that's even cheaper than that? You know who it is?
Who?
You'll know the name, and we won't go into why. Ron Jeremy.
Oh, all right.
Do you know why? Because I had heard a rumor, and it's not a rumor, it's true. Like, he doesn't even buy luggage. He carries all his clothes. He carries his clothes in like a hefty bag through the airport.
I had a friend who he was like doing the circuit in LA, and he went to a Playboy Mansion a couple times years and years ago, and Ron Jeremy was there. And he just said the guy was just very, very odd. Like, he was a kind of a hanger-oner on everyone. And I'm not going to just talk about bad, but he said he had a homeless attitude about him.
Yeah.
And that's basically, and that's right from him. He's like, it was cool to meet him. He has a picture of him with him, but it's like, he just kind of like didn't have anywhere to be or anywhere to go. And it's like, he was just there.
Yeah, such a weird. Some people live such odd existences, and
another guy
who
did all of his dreams.
yeah, and here he's. I'm seriously walking through the LA airport with his clothes in a hefty bag behind him.
That's crazy. It's like the walk of shame.
It's like, what are you talking about? You're a freaking legend in the internet. But same thing. Transition. The same thing could be said about Shatner. For the longest time, before the movies came out, between that time where the series ended and that first Star Trek movie came out, he didn't work really. And there was this line he used, I still quote him to this day, where he goes, I was one of the most recognizable people in Hollywood, and I didn't have a job at the time because Star Trek was just syndicated and he wasn't making a freaking nickel off of that.
Yeah, he did like a few movies in the 70s, I think. Tarantula? I forget the name of it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he didn't.
These were nothing. These were box office flops.
Yeah, and now, he can go. One of my favorite. Sorry, I gotta do a little trivia for you. My favorite Shatner things, kind of like a Ron Jeremy thing, was that he found a little angle, and I thought it was brilliant, where he would go into grocery stores, right? And buy groceries or whatever, and he would write people a check, right? And if they knew him, and most of them did, what do you think happened?
He would sell them the signature.
No, they wouldn't even ask. They would just keep.
Oh my God! Really?
They would put the money in the register, and he had all these uncashed checks.
That's hilarious.
Why not? It's better than an autograph. It's his freaking check, and you can just hold on to it and for years and do whatever you wanted to it. But he's basically getting food and whatever for free wherever he went. And I'm sure once he figured that out, it's like, why aren't people cashing my? Oh, I get it.
It's like, I'm William Shatner.
I'm William Shatner. I go to grocery stores every day.
That's pretty hilarious. I could see Bill Clinton doing that.
Wow, it'd be a little tougher because remember, with Clinton, even ex-presidents still have a security or Secret Service guy at their hip for basically until they die.
You don't think he's signing his own checks?
I don't even know if he has to do his own checks, really. I think he's a little different.
A yacht.
Well, yes.
So, all right. So we're talking about the moon and moving. Fast forward to now. Right. We have God's gift to the world. We have Elon Musk, the guy who's going to put tunnels in the country, and we're going to be traveling at the high speed of 200 miles per hour underground.
I had forgotten about the tunnel.
Yeah,
thing.
I said 200 miles per hour. The Boring Company, through the earth.
Every statement he makes would make a futurist blush.
Now he also named the company Tesla, but the cars are battery powered, which is Edison's invention. So I don't really understand that either.
But you made the mistake there, which is and not your fault. But I imagine 20 years from now, it doesn't matter. They're actually thinking about firing him from Tesla. Remember, he didn't found Tesla. He bought it.
I didn't know that.
Oh,
actually.
Yeah. Again, well, a lot of people don't. You could go with people in the street. It's like, who founded Tesla? They'd be like, oh, that Elon Musk guy. They don't know he's from South Africa, and they definitely don't know that he didn't buy it. It's kind of like saying that Mark Cuban invented the Dallas Mavericks.
Mm-hmm.
No, he just bought them because Elon Musk, he's only famous because he made a ton of money helping found PayPal.
Yeah.
PayPal. And he used it to buy Tesla and then start funding SpaceX. And then, of course, he got government contracts. And now the government's looking at him saying that, he's basically their guy to a certain degree. It's like, all right, he'll play ball. Let's just have him do whatever. And we'll help him along because he's going to help us. But every single headline that he creates is just this wild fantasy. And this is me, a flat earther, saying this,
mm-hmm.
which is okay. I'm going to solve Puerto Rico's power problems after that hurricane. He didn't. I'm going to send 2 tourists around the moon in 2018. No. I'm going to found we're going to colonize Mars by 2030. I'm going to start launching by 2022. No. A tunnel running the entire length of California. No. I'm going to have a super plane go from the United States to China. It'll cost the same price as a first class ticket. No. It's just, they're not even close. They don't even get off the ground. And yet every time he says something, and I get it, you make a few billion dollars. It's like, the media latches onto it. It's like it's a story that they can run with because, well, he made billions, therefore he must know something.
He makes a cool car, a cool looking car,
You can't
put out if it catches on fire. You can't put it out. So
even though apparently it's space proof.
Right, and that was my next question.
Sure.
All right. So we launched his Tesla into space with a mannequin or who knows whose dead body.
Oh yeah, no, I wasn't a real person unless
you never know.
Trying to get rid of a body, I suppose.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's the best way to get rid of a body. It's like, all right, we still have that Hoffa body,
there you go. It's Hoffa in the suit. So they launch it.
No, and not even to make a joke out of any of this.
Yeah.
They have cameras everywhere on this car.
Right.
It's in space. Articles were released immediately. I'm sure you saw these. Why does the Tesla car look fake? Right?
Yep.
Because even my son, who's 10 years old and he has a really phenomenal bullshit meter, goes, it looks fake. He goes, it's like, I don't know. I just doesn't, when they launch a rocket, it's shaking, all this stuff. Yeah. But for whatever reason, this is just, it's fake. Wouldn't it have been, and they showed the Earth, right? In the, I believe they have a camera showing the Earth getting smaller and smaller until the battery died, even though you could have put a Tesla solar panel, I guess, charging the camera.
Right. Not to mention you had a giant capsule underneath that car that should have been full of batteries. But anyway, go on.
No, but yeah, there's that. I mean, I can leave my lights on for 48 hours in my car, but you can't power a GoPro.
Right.
And but yeah, I mean, wouldn't it have been a really great commercial for a Tesla power, solar panel or something?
Oh, don't. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to give him any ideas.
No. I actually talked about this during a breakdown. In fact, I was the only guy to bring this part up because other people were going off on the material.
Is it that solar has not gone anywhere in the past, 100 years? I mean, the technology is garbage.
What surprised me, and again, it came down to corporate greed and what we didn't see. It's not. Sometimes it isn't what you see. I mean, other people are saying, well, a lot of people are focusing on the impossible car. Why didn't the paint blister? Why didn't the windows just shatter? Not just the side windows, which were rolled down. Why didn't the front one just spiderweb immediately from the hot and cold, temperature variations, and so on and so on. Why the cameras that didn't see each other were interesting, or of course the biggest instance of misdirection I've ever seen in my life, which was having the 2 rockets land right next to each other. And the reason they had to do that is so they didn't confuse the audience. It's like, well, if you show one and the other, it's like, are we looking at the same rockets? They land them right next to each other, which you'd never, ever do. But when they went from that to showing the car in space without actually showing it detach from the Falcon Heavy, and the Falcon Heavy drifting backwards towards Earth or going whichever direction you did. It completely did not show it in any of the frames. No, all that stuff, yeah, it bugged me. But the other part that bugged me was you look at that car from head to toe, including the mannequin, there wasn't a single logo anywhere to be found anywhere. And at the very least, there's two companies involved here. He's tied intimately to both, Tesla and SpaceX. That car should have been a freaking walking decal. It should have been covered with all sorts of fun stuff. At the very least, should have been a giant Tesla on the side, a giant SpaceX on the hood.
But $1 million ad for Coca-Cola or something.
Oh yeah,
sell 30 of those.
Oh, hell. Disney alone would have paid. First of all, if it was the wrong car to use. I know they did. They absolutely ripped it off from Heavy Metal, the animated movie from 1981 with the Corvette flying in space. It's like, okay, we'll use the convertible, even though you should have used your state-of-the-art S-Type, the four-door, because then you just load it up. Oh, the media. I can imagine Tesla was just hanging up on people that were calling them after this. It's like, okay, instead of the stupid generic astronaut, how much would have Disney paid for a stormtrooper to be put in that front seat?
I mean, it's unlimited. I mean, they would have named a park Elon for that.
Yeah, take your pick. You would have just loaded that car up with all four seats with some iconic, space, whatever. You take your pick. Not just. I mean, Disney would have paid.
I only looked at it a little bit. Like I really, it kind of came and went.
Yeah.
And I never really looked into it. So is it true that, the cameras died after about 4.5 hours?
Something like that. Or they stopped transmission, one of the two.
Right. Well, I've read that the batteries died after 4.5 hours, which I think a GoPro battery goes for a lot further. Granted, it's deep space. If we're gonna buy the temperature changes, drains battery, all of that great stuff, even though satellites seem to be able to work, I'm surprised there's not like an American flag or something patriotic or
why not?
Elon giving the finger. I don't know.
Why not? And there would have been there were subtle references to media, but nothing that could be trademarked. So supposedly they were playing, even though it's a vacuum, you wouldn't have heard it. It's playing Starman by David Bowie.
Yeah.
Which of course also is a movie about an alien. You had Don't Panic on the nav.
Oh, that's right. That's what it said. Don't panic, which
isn't trademarked, and that's from Hitchhiker's Guide.
Okay.
And then what was the other thing they had in there? Oh, then of course, the Heavy Metal reference, which was from a 1980s movie, which no one would have remembered.
Ralph Bakshi. I know it.
Oh yeah, you know it. I
have it on I don't know if it's on Blu-ray. I have it on DVD.
I saw it in the theater when I was in junior high. That's how far back I go.
I remember when Ralph Bakshi was broke selling his cartoon cells on eBay.
Yeah, I was at a comic book convention down in no, it wasn't even comic. It was Comic-Con.
Wow.
At down in San Diego, and there were still some of those cells lying around. Just the stupid ones. The ones that are showing like a part of a leg.
Yeah, I remember thinking like, do I get one? And looking back, I really should have.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's a piece of history in some ways. It was a mind-blowing movie at the time.
Yeah.
But anyway, that the SpaceX thing, what I think they were going with was, can we fake space on the cheap? Can we fake space on a real budget? Forget about that $50 million a day that NASA gets paid. Can we really just go, take it to a B level?
Make it easier too.
Yeah, make it and see how the public reacts to it. And remember, this is a different time than it was years ago, where with social media in real time, you can track the believability. You can run algorithms and look for keywords, and how many times you're going to see the word fake or doesn't look real or any of these things. You hit a certain percentage, it's like, yeah, we probably shouldn't do any more of those. And then shortly after that launch, or say a few months later, something, I think NOAA got involved, NOAA, the National Oceanic. They said that, oh yeah, by the way, it was against national security or something to that effect for him to be running cameras from that thing. And so he's not going to be able to do those anymore. It's like, really? So he's going to do missions now and we're not going to have cameras on them. Really? That's what you're going to, whatever.
There's mainly two other things I wanted to
Sure.
Well, three things. One tiny thing. Okay. One is so while what we would really need to kind of prove that the Earth is what it is. I mean, what is being claimed to be, which is a globe. Right. We would need, possibly from the distance of the moon, a video of it rotating, maybe live. I don't really know. I mean, with today's animation and everything, I think even if something like that was created, and I'm going to point out something that was created that I think looks completely fake, and that's the 4K moon. The 4K moon to me looks like a really nice rendering of something. Now, now I'm not going to lie. I'm on the side that we are a globe and that it is a moon.
That's all right.
I do buy into a lot of anomalies that exist for us going to the moon. I also think that you raise a million amazing, questions and comments about that. So although I'm still sold, it's more habitual. I respect everybody's opinion, but that 4K moon does not look real to me.
No, and nor does the you want to have some fun, look at the old JAXA footage from Japan. They supposedly sent early HD cameras around the moon in early like 2004, 2005. I think.
How do you spell that?
JAXA. It's basically the Japanese space program, and in fact, there was so little footage. In fact, I think National Geographic bought the rights, or Discovery bought the rights to some of that footage, where they called it Earthrise, where it was coming over the moon, and here's the Earth coming up.
Stereo imaging of the moon.
Yeah, whatever. But where was it going with this? I'm sorry. There was
talking about about the 4K moon.
Oh yeah,
not looking real.
Yeah, no, it doesn't look real. And if you were looking to say, what evidence would I take? People ask me that all the time.
Yeah, that was my I guess my big question is, what would it take for you to say, all right, I'm packing up?
Initially, it was something that would be hard to get, which is get a 4K camera or whatever they have nowadays, and strap it to the. Oh, is it? That's ridiculous.
Well, you keep doubling it. I mean, that's all they do.
Yeah, and the camera technology. Who knew it was going to keep getting better and better and better this quickly?
I stopped at 1080p currently because I don't want to buy another TV, and I personally don't see the difference.
Right. Plus, remember all the great movies, and I challenge anyone. Remember the greatest year in movies was 1999. Anyone looks it up. That's when we peaked out, and HD wasn't even close to being ready in 1999. So all the great movies were done before all this super stuff came out. So yeah, I mean, I know it's been shot. Anyway, so if you took, let's say, an 8K camera and you put it on the side of a rocket and you let it go up and you let it run. They did it with Tesla. Let it run. Do not hit edit. Do not hit pause. Do not hit anything. Let the sucker run to where the Earth starts curving on the edges and becomes a ball, and then it leaves. And then let that 4K camera, be released to people. That would be, of course, the first thing. But that's tough because you have to have a space agency who would agree with that, and it's never happened in the history of whatever. So that's fine. I accept that that's probably not going to happen. But I came up with something that was much, much more simple. In fact, I just did it recently with Clue 13. Which I released. It took me a long time to release Clue 13, but I did it because of the subject matter experts I had on, which were talking about the vacuum of space. And they were saying, the first guy that came on was an industrial valves and seals guy. And he goes, look, the ISS cannot, from an engineering standpoint, cannot exist. He goes, it's aluminum, it's plastic. He goes, the pressure inside that thing, he goes, the seals wouldn't hold. He goes, there's not a machine shop on board. All Navy ships, all military ships have, big military ships have full-blown machine shops because you have to make the tolerances absolutely perfect. He goes, why aren't they shutting the doors? This thing should be like a submarine. When they go from compartment to compartment, they should be shutting doors because right now, if a micrometeor hit that thing the size of a nickel, they're all dead instantly. It's not like the movies where it's like, oh, the air is coming out. Get some duct tape. No, you're gone. The air's gone in the room. The air's gone in your lungs in a fraction of a second, which is why I put at the beginning of my video, you can see the down-to-earth versions of this, where you take a steel rail car, one of those tanker rail cars, and you apply a vacuum field to the inside of it. And the outside pressure crushes it, the entire thing. And this is steel, mind you. This is not aluminum and plastic, literally in a fraction of a second. So the other guy that came on was a vacuum expert that made clean rooms for electronics, clean chambers.
Okay, I've been in a couple.
you don't know the amount. No, not just a clean room. I mean, when you're manufacturing the precision electronics, you have to create these little chambers that are absolutely molecule free.
Yeah, maybe
you know what I'm talking about.
That's how I've been in the ones where you go into a room and it basically sprays you with a bunch of air.
Okay.
And you're wearing a lab coat, and then you go in. I think it's more to discharge your static.
Exactly. These other things are meant. He goes, you can't have everything. It's not just dust. Because there cannot be any air when in this chamber.
Wow.
Because you don't know the horsepower it takes just to get it to a 99% vacuum. As a matter of fact, he goes, there isn't enough horsepower physically. You cannot generate enough horsepower to get that last 1%. The last 1% has to be done chemically. And he goes, whatever people are showing, and he was kind of hinting about the suits, and that's what it. So back to your question, which is, what would it take to prove to me that that everything's real, and the NASA
what we were taught was real.
What we were taught was real, and that is fine. Give me a NASA spacesuit. Loan me a NASA spacesuit. I don't care what for any era, because apparently they all work just perfectly. And put me in a vacuum chamber, and you pull the lever. And tell me if I'm going to live.
That's how they're going to kill you.
I'll say, look, whoever's making the challenge, you should probably get another suit and come in with me. I'm not going to wear this bulletproof vest by myself. But the physics involved, we're not talking advanced physics. We're not even talking basic physics. We're talking balloon physics.
You're talking about structure. You're talking about the basics.
Yeah, which is, look, if you hold a balloon in your hand, why is it a balloon? It's because it's higher pressure inside the balloon and lower pressure in the room around it. It's like the higher pressure is trying to get out and the balloon's so tight, right? Imagine that in a fabric suit. The suit would be pumped up to such a level you would not be able to bend your arms, your knees, your feet. You wouldn't be able. You might as well be wearing a suit made out of wood. And that suit would be non-functional. The fingers, you couldn't articulate your fingers, let alone work on advanced electronics outside of something. And yet we're expected to believe that an astronaut suit is absolutely flawless. And I don't care about the heating and the cooling and the oxygen and the humidity. That's fine. We can do that with modified scuba gear now. We used it in the movie The Abyss quite well. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to the vacuum of space, there is no technology to counteract that. There is no technology.
Do you think a lot of this stuff is underwater as well? I mean, that's another theory I've seen people posting things where you see a bubble kind of move up and they measure the speed of it, and it's the speed of a bubble going to surface.
Absolutely. I think when The Abyss came out, blame James Cameron for this. I think when The Abyss came out in 1989, where he figured out how to simulate, the darkness, which basically he just took, he basically trademarked it, where you just fill the top surface of the pool, if it's outside, with tons and tons of layers of little black balls and black rubber balls, and it completely seals off the light. Well, unless you have a studio and a giant swimming pool that's inside a building, which is what NASA uses to train their astronauts in. But when you're training your astronauts in a swimming pool, it's the exact opposite of what you should be doing. Because remember, a swimming pool, it's like, it simulates weightlessness. Yeah, but it also simulates resistance, which you wouldn't have. It's tough to slog through water, but in a vacuum, you should be able to move around just fine because there's nothing around you. The only thing a swimming pool is good for is simulating. It looks good on camera. You know what I mean? It's in fact, you turn off the lights. I think that's when they figured it out. They said, holy smokes, you know what? With the right lighting, as long as we don't have to worry about the stars, this looks just like the real thing. If there was a real thing. What you don't see, and which is why I put the challenge out there, I find me footage of an astronaut from any era hanging out in a vacuum chamber. The closest thing you'll see is a guy in a G-force suit, otherwise known as a pressure suit, which they use in fighter pilots, just to try to counteract the blood rush, mostly. Or you see James May from Top Gear, the British car show, who got put in one of those pressure suits. Right. And he was scared out of his mind because when they pump that suit up and it goes into a vacuum, the suit goes absolutely rigid. And when you're a pilot, you don't care because you're sitting down rigid anyway. You don't care if the suit goes rigid. But if you're an astronaut, tell me how that worked. Tell me how all this worked now. And then, if you can convince me now that you've got the digital technology and the microprocessor technology to create a spacesuit that counteracts all that stuff, tell me how you did in 1969. Tell me how you did back then. Tell me how these guys were running around the moon, playing golf, without a care in the world, and
Right.
nothing was tethered to anything. With battery technology that was antiquated, tell me what gauges were keeping them running and why they weren't scared. Why nobody said, "Hey, having problems breathing. Maybe I should go back in." Nobody said that. No one had a care in the world. It's all. My point is, if the suit is fake, then everything else is fake. Yeah.
And
So
do you think that that's one of the things that triggers people about you is, well, you come up with a really valid argument. And I think that for the most part, Flat Earth, it was just nice artwork. That, I mean, prior to your videos, I was watching, the other night, I was watching your channel. I was watching the fake NASA ISS interior where where you were talking about, the use of, the technology to create a hologram in front of you.
Right.
I
Yeah,
forget,
yeah.
was that Microsoft?
From Mike Helmick, yeah, I grabbed that off of his stuff where what's happened now is you've got a group of people, kind of like yourself, tech people, so in a lot of cases, who are analyzing footage that up until now shouldn't be analyzed. Meaning moviemistakes.com is just one of many websites that cover every mistake that's ever made in movies, because movies are shot out of, the reason why there's mistakes is they're shot out of sequence to save money.
It's a lot like Mr. Skin, but very different.
There you go.
I'm just kidding.
So no, I get it. So, but you're shooting things out of sequence. You shouldn't have to. That doesn't apply though to the news and things that are happening in real time, right? Because it's the news, and it's like NASA, But then all of a sudden you start finding mistakes, computer generated mistakes that are happening on the ISS, and you're going, wait, why is this happening out there? This is real, right? Why would this be faked? And then, then the questions start rolling in after that. So,
I suggest everybody watch that video because it is very damning. Like, you watch this and the glitches
where the guy grabs the hat that isn't there. He grabs the hat.
He puts his hand through it or something.
Well, no. What he did was, can you remember? It's a dual layer thing. They're watching the monitor. If they're using corrective context to do this, that's fine. I suppose that's cool technology. But they're watching the monitor, and there is a glitch where the hat is there, but it's in the wrong place. And so he grabs the hat, and his reality, his virtual overlay is actually grabbing the hat. He grabs the hat and puts it off to the side. The problem is the hat isn't there. The hat isn't where it should be. And then he only realizes it later, and the hat's still floating there, and he does the exact right thing, which is, instead of going for the hat again, because that would have made it worse. And again, I try to tell, if NASA's ever listening, don't do it live. The problem is the same now as it was 60 years ago in television and mostly television. Don't do it live.
Do a 2-minute delay. I mean, that's all you
do. Any type
of. I mean, using their kind of money, I mean, the processing speed has to exist to be able to render the stuff within 2 minutes.
Right. But it's like they insist on talking to school children. They insist on talking to media live to try to make it more credible. As they just, no, you're killing yourself. You're making huge blunders.
That's how I think NASA's number one problem is that, and this goes for NASA in general, even if everything we're talking about is untrue and the globe does exist, NASA likes to be cute, and nobody really likes that, I think. It's kind of like your science teacher bringing in puppets or something.
Right.
Nobody wants to see this. It's weird.
Right. Yeah.
We don't need the hair up. We don't need you spinning around anymore. We're grown-ups. Even the kids are grown-ups. We don't need to see this.
But you're intelligent. And remember, the average person on the street, a little visual goes a long way, even if they don't buy it. Because subliminally, remember, the subtext is still the same. Whether you're talking about the face on Mars or something on top of Saturn or some stupid thing where the astronaut does a somersault in the ISS.
Nobody
either way,
watches
you're saying
this stuff either.
No, they don't. They don't read the articles. All they care about is the glance, and that is, oh, right, space, right.
Right, I'm watching the Today Show, and the guy's opening a Snapple or something and pouring it upside down. Oh yeah, he's doing the same trick from 45 years ago.
Yeah. It's the same. Yeah, well, the old tricks are the best tricks, and they have worked for the longest time. The problem now is the internet and social media has changed that forever. Everything is being analyzed. Just assume that whatever footage you're putting out from space is going to be looked over again and again by people that have amazing attention to detail, and they will find the cracks.
Would you recommend any one particular video that you have uploaded to somebody who just wants the basics? Like, you know, like, all right, you're full of crap. All right, let me watch something. You know, it's like that type of thing. 'Cause I want to have my wife watch it. She says she's willing to watch it with an open mind and not make comments.
You know what I would do? I wouldn't even recommend. I mean, yeah, my stuff's good, but I wouldn't, for a brand new person, I try to recommend other people.
Okay.
So there's a list. Okay, if you want, you can pick and choose. It's called the Flat Earth Short List for New People. It's a playlist on YouTube, and it's got a whole bunch of different people from all backgrounds. The guy that really did a fantastic job at looking from an intro standpoint, and it seems objective, as about as objective as you can get, and it's a great thing to show people if they're brand new to this, and that's called the Flat Earth Litmus Test. It's by a channel called Marty Leeds, Leeds. Right. Very good, and it's really his delivery is good, and his just the overall presentation is really, really solid.
Does Marty Leeds 33 sound right?
That sounds about right.
Okay.
Yeah. And you'll see it again if you type in the Flat Earth Litmus Test. You'll find it. It's got I don't know if it's hit 1 million hits by now, but I think it's got to be close. But that being said, I'd recommend that at least until the full blown documentary comes out. If you want to see the trailer for it, it's called BehindTheCurveFilm.com. And that was a documentary that was done by some LA team all of last year, and they just released it up at the Toronto Film Festival. I got a chance to see it twice, and I would absolutely show that to people that were brand new to it, you know, because it was made by mainstream media for mainstream media, and that's what. But Marty Leeds has probably got I think the best intro out of the gate.
Well, I want to really thank you for coming on. You know, a fellow Mark with a K.
Yeah.
It's always good. And your YouTube channel is Mark K. Sargent, Sargent. I'll put a link to everything in the show notes. Your website is enclosedworld.com.
Yep.
You can go there to join the Flat Earth Army.
Yep.
You even put an address so that people can send you all types of wacky stuff.
Strange
do you get
stuff,
globes? Do people send you globes?
No, I've gotten no hate physical mail. I've gotten, in fact, very few, maybe 1% of my email is hate mail, and maybe 1% of my phone calls. The comment section for YouTube, though, is completely different.
Growing up in my house, we had this one huge globe, and I'm going to say it was about 20 inches in diameter. And it didn't spin because it was a bar, like you would flip it open.
I know. Yeah, I know.
You know those, right? But this one that we had was very, very old. And I just remember it was always kind of a joke that if you flip it open, all the good stuff's on the inside. See, it's flat. And, that was kind of the joke.
Oh, that's good.
Is, all the good stuff is on the inside. So anyway.
That's awesome. Yeah, no. And believe me, I used to, along those lines, and people say, well, he's a conspiracy guy and he believed in anything. No. I loved the globe. I used to collect. I mean, I was eccentric enough and had enough disposable income. I collected a lot of eccentric stuff, and I used to collect antique globes. Absolutely. I must have had 9 or 10 in my house, including globe bookends, and I had walls that were covered with world maps. I was about as deep in as you could get.
Are you still kind of fascinated by the globe?
I think it's a great icon, but now I understand what it is. It's an icon more than anything. It's just a symbol, and a very clever one at that. But that's all it is. It is a symbol of where you used to be.
And what about maps? Like, how do you feel? Like, do you have the same kind of connection towards?
No, I overanalyze all maps now. Like the Mercator map, I know full well that, and even cartographers will tell you that it's not the map they should be showing in schools. They should be showing at the very least the Gall-Peters projection, which shows the continents more accurate in terms of size perspective. Because remember, the Mercator map still shows Greenland the same size as frickin' Africa. And Greenland's tiny. It's 17 times smaller than Africa, but yet we still see that that Mercator map that was meant for shipping. It was designed that way it's 500 years old, and it's never changed. That when you pull it down in front of the blackboard, if they have blackboards, that's what's there.
They don't even pull things down anymore.
No,
it's too dangerous.
Not. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't forget, use purple pens too. Don't use red pens.
My kid, I mean, he gets an iPad from school. It's, why?
Yeah.
It's,
yeah. Book bags. Where are those? Yeah.
Now, thankfully, that hasn't. He has a regular backpack. He doesn't have those transparent ones.
Oh, that's good. That's good. We haven't gotten that far yet.
I think there are places though that have done that.
Yeah.
Terrible. Mm-hmm. But all right, Mark. Well, I really appreciate your time. And yeah. I mean, if you ever want to come on and talk about anything that's going on, I feel like this is the type of I don't even know what to call it. I'm just going to call it a theory that it's going to be continuously expanding. Elon Musk could have made a form of an experiment with his launch or any of his launches that they seem to happen weekly. He could do something technically to debunk all this.
Yeah.
But he's not. And that's, to me, he complains, he calls people out directly about flat Earth. He says, well, let me ask you why isn't there a flat Mars society? If he's so, why won't he just create that video then?
Yeah. Yeah. Eventually you would have to address it. I mean, 2 days ago, we just caught, in terms of trending numbers, if you look at YouTube and you sort by upload date, we caught President Trump, and I didn't think we were going to do that this year.
Really?
We both come in at about 20.8 relevant search results. And you got to remember, when this thing started, we weren't even at 500,000 back 3 years ago, and now we're at 20.8 million.
Wow.
So yeah, it's massive.
And your YouTube channel's growing. You have over 50,000 subscribers.
Yeah, I mean, the YouTube numbers. Well, yeah, but I've given away.
You have 57,666 subscribers.
There
you go.
That's trouble.
I'm screenshotting it.
I don't really care about the subscribers so much because I made everything Creative Commons license when I made it, so I've given away just millions of hits on like the people like the. You can look it up. There's different channels, like one did my clues, called it Under the Dome full documentary. Another one called They're Hiding God with the Greatest Lie Ever. There's just millions, but I don't mind. I mean, it's great and all, fantastic, but look, I don't really care about being famous. I just care about being right.